Discover the sinister origins of the Sigbin. A cursed Aswang revealed in spine-chilling detail. The whispers echoed through Oak Hollow, sending shivers down Claire's spine. The Sigbin, it preys on single mothers like you. An old man had told her last night at Millie's diner, his voice low and filled with terror. She served pancakes and coffee, but his words hung thick and heavy in the air, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. The neighborhood she used to love, rich with laughter and backyard barbecues, had transformed into a maze of shadows and suspicion. Claire could feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing against her, watching, waiting. 6 months since the accident. 6 long months filled with grief and uncertainty that gnawed at Claire's heart. She was exhausted, juggling the needs of her 2 children, Lucy and Max, while trying to hold down her job, which became a refuge from the collapsing world outside. But even the tiny haven of Millie's, once a beacon of warmth, was suffused with dark disquiet, as if the walls themselves whispered secrets. That night, she lay in bed, the chill of oppression clinging to her skin. A cacophony of unsettling sounds jolted her from sleep: the faint rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig. Heart racing, she peeled back the curtains. The moonlight, cold and pallid, cast eerie shapes on the trees. A haunting silhouette flickered at the edge of the woods. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. Morning sucked the warmth back into the world, but dread still entangled her. She found scratch marks on the children's window, claw-like impressions that made her stomach turn. What had been outside? It felt like something was prowling just beyond the reach of her perception, gloating in the underbrush. She forced herself to breathe, to push the rising panic down. It's just her imagination, she told herself. Just shadows. But the dread tightened its grip the moment Mr. Thompson pulled up next door, his smile wide, but eyes hollow, as if he carried secrets darker than the woods themselves. "I can help you with the children," he offered, his voice smooth, but the words felt sharp. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled. Why was he so eager? Surely, she could trust the man who always waved hello. But she recalled the whispers, the way the other neighbors had cast nervous glances her way, fingers pointing in the dark. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The atmosphere thickened, the air electric with unspoken fears. The children, blissfully unaware, played in the yard, but Claire felt their innocence like a jagged wound. When night wrapped its dark cloak around the neighborhood, she couldn't shake the feeling of something lurking. The woods were alive with whispers that clawed at her sanity, taunting her with visions of a creature born from folklore. The Sigbin, what if the tales were true? What if her mistakes had drawn it closer, stealing herself? Claire stepped outside, drawn to the menacing woods, the instinct deep within her pushing her forward. She followed the scratch marks leading into the darkness, each step tightening a knot of dread in her chest. The path twisted and turned, shadows lurking at the edge. And then she saw it, an unsettling gathering, figures swaying in the moonlight, chanting in a language she didn't understand, surrounding a shape writhing beneath their grasp. The realization crashed over her like a wave. The true horror was here, buried in the heart of Oak Hollow, too close for comfort. Her breath caught as she stood frozen, on the brink of discovery. She had stumbled onto something much darker than tales around a campfire. Could she protect her children from this evil that crept just beyond the trees? Or was the real monster already inside her community, lurking in plain sight? A bone-deep chill slammed through her as the truth pulsated in the air, and she knew this was just the beginning. The chanting grew louder, wrapping around Claire like a cold fog. She strained to decipher the words, but it was just a haunting melody, twisted with a rhythm that felt ancient and wrong. The figures danced, shadows morphing into grotesque shapes under the pale light. Heart pounding, Claire took a step back, her breath hitching. The ground was soft beneath her feet, the earth moist and weirdly warm. She cursed her curiosity, felt the adrenaline sharp and harsh in her veins. Fear clawed at her throat, She could turn away, retreat to the safety of her home. But whispers of her children echoed in her mind, filling the silence with dread. What if this gathering held answers? Or worse, what if they held her children as fate? She carefully moved closer, creeping through the underbrush, her knees brushing against damp leaves. And then she spotted the writhing shape at the center. It was small, almost childlike, but the look of it twisted her stomach, a creature wrapped in ragged cloth, still and yet shrouded in silence. The way it lay there, completely still, made her heart thrum like a war drum. A chill shot through Claire. Instinct screamed for her to run, but an unseen tether held her there, roots of desperation anchoring her feet. What are you doing? A desperate voice inside her pleaded. From behind the circle of dancers, Mr. Thompson emerged, his face flickered between shadow and light. He caught her gaze and held it, a sly smile creeping across his lips. You shouldn't be here, Claire, he said, his voice silky and calm, cutting through the chanting. The figures stilled, slowly turning toward her, their eyes glinting like predators. What are you doing? She managed to rasp, the words brittle against the weight of his gaze. He stepped forward, closer than she thought possible, the shadows seemingly parting for him. We're offering a sacrifice, he replied, his tone chillingly serene. To the Sigbin. It demands tribute, and it seems it has chosen you. The realization wrapped around her like chains. Her children. Fury and dread surged through her, igniting a fire of instinct. Where are they? She cried, each syllable sharp with desperation. Safe, for now, he replied, a twisted grin unfurling. But that won't last unless you cooperate. A surge of anger fueled her enough to push through her fear. I won't let you take them, she hissed, heart racing as the figures shifted, restless. Let them belong to the woods, Claire, Thompson said, his voice a murmur of silk and poison. They could flourish like the rest. With the weight of his words sinking deep, Claire felt the ground beneath her shake. The trees seemed to whisper now, the air thick and electric as terror descended. All hope of safety vanished. She turned to flee, heart pounding, but something snarled in the depths of the darkness. A guttural sound that echoed through the trees, primal and hungry, rose to drown out the chanting. Footsteps thudded from the shadows, a wild rush of claws on earth. The Sigbin was coming. Turning back, Claire saw Thompson's smile dissolve into something darker, more sinister. You can't escape, he roared as the night air twisted, heavy with the promise of horror. Claire bolted toward the lights of Oak Hollow, her heart in her throat. But behind her, the guttural snarls grew closer, a dreadful pursuit gnawing at the edges of her sanity. With every ounce of her being, she pushed faster, driven by love and terror. The woods closed in, the Sigbin's presence looming at her back as she desperately clung to the hope of saving her children. But would she reach them in time, or was the Sigbin already whispering their names, calling them home? The question burned in her mind as she raced through the dark, foreboding woods. Claire's breath came faster, but she refused to give up. She could feel the shadows closing in, and the night was far from over. The trees loomed like jailers watching a frantic escape, branches clawing at Claire as she slipped further into the darkness. She could hear it, a low growl reverberating through the air, merging with the rustle of night. The Sigbin was hunting her, sprinting against the panic seizing her mind. She felt her legs burning, but her children's faces flashed before her, and she pushed onward. Behind her, the snarling grew louder, angrier, a cadence of menace that mixed with the fading echoes of Thompson's chilling words. Could he be right? Would they really flourish in this nightmare world? Her heart screamed against that thought. No, they were born of light, not shadows. Claire stumbled over an exposed root and crashed to the ground, a gasp escaping her lips as pain shot through her ankle. She fought to stand, each second flooding her head with visions of claws, sharp teeth, and darkness consuming the innocent. A sudden crack of a branch echoed too close, and she froze. She twisted her head, straining to see through the thick underbrush. Fear paralyzed her as the shadows shifted, morphing into something darker. It was closer now. She could feel the wet, musty breath of the Sigbin raking across her skin. Mother, a whisper danced through her mind like a wisp of smoke, chilling her further. She bolted upright, ignoring the pain. Where are you? The word echoed back, hollow and mocking, as if the very trees held her children's spirits captive. Desperation surged through her, convoluting time and reality. She turned to the left and ran, ignoring every instinct telling her to hide or risk missed opportunities. Twisting around the thick bushes, she came to a slow creek, shimmering faintly under the moonlight. She had no choice. If she could just get to the other side, the water could be a barrier, a moment's solace from the creature behind her. Splashing through, the cold bit into her legs, sending shockwaves up her spine. She looked back and froze. Silence. It suffocated the world around her. The shadows continued to move, only the glint of something monstrous shimmering. Then, she felt a presence, creeping up behind her. Something was watching from the fog, heavy and saturated with malice. Before she could react, she caught a flash of scales, moving just beyond her vision. It was there, among the ferns and brambles, its eyes like burning coals, yet oddly pleading, as if it understood a pain she was not privy to. Mother, the voice tangled with an odd mix of anguish and yearning. She trained her eyes ahead. The riverbank was getting steeper. Abby, she called out, the name shredding through the silence. The Sigbin seemed to hesitate, a fleeting moment that made her heart flutter with hope. Then it lunged ghastly and furious, snarling through a gaped maw filled with fangs. Claire didn't wait to see more. With a final burst of adrenaline, she lunged up the bank, her arms flailing to grasp onto anything. Grass, soil, anything to pull her away from that hungry face. But the ground gave way beneath her. She cried out as she tumbled, grasping blindly for anything to hold on to. Mud caked her hands. Her heart sank as she skidded down into the darkness. Where was the edge of the world? It spun and twisted, and suddenly she was tumbling into a pit of charcoal. As she slipped deeper, Claire realized it wasn't just the land. The fabric of reality was unraveling. The echoing snarls above became distant, muffled by a certain silence, and then it hit her an overwhelming wave of despair. Claire, help! The tiny, wavering voice slipped through the fog, haunting and distant. Mommy! Her children, the pit was alive with a clamor of whispered names and desperate pleas, rising up like a tide. They were here, caught in the very depths she was plummeting toward. As she landed painfully on a cool, damp surface, the ground pulsed around her, alive with whispers of ghosts. She wasn't alone. Something in the darkness told her the Sigbin was still there, watching, waiting. What had she fallen into? What could ever emerge from this cursed descent? A hiss filled the air, sharp and unnatural, and Claire steeled herself, squaring her shoulders as a chilling realization dawned on her. She had to face whatever awaited in the shadows, or risk losing everything she held dear. But could she bear the price of knowing the truth? The darkness pulsed around Claire, thick and suffocating. Her fingers grazed the cool, damp surface beneath her, but what should have been solid ground felt alive, quivering with an unnerving heartbeat. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of desperate, disembodied voices swirling like smoke in her mind. Mommy, please help! Trapped, each word sent jagged shivers down her spine, echoing the fear spiraling within her. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to breathe against the panic clawing up her throat. She pressed her palms against the ground, willing the murmurs to reveal some semblance of clarity. Suddenly, the environment around her shifted. Like an awakening nightmare, forms began to materialize from the darkness. Shadows twisted into shapes. Children. Her children. Abby. Ethan. Claire cried, the names tearing through the air, desperate and raw. They were there, standing just beyond her reach, their faces distorted by fear and pleading echoes. Their eyes shimmered with tears, round and wide like lanterns in the void. Mommy. Their voices intertwined, a symphony of terror that tugged at her heart. She stumbled forward, willing it to be true, but as she approached, they began to fade, wisps of smoke dissolving into the gloom like memories lost to time. No, please, she screamed, reaching for them, but they slipped away, swallowed by an abyss that felt increasingly like her own despair. The hiss returned, jagged and serpentine, sending a chill through her that reverberated along her bones. She froze, realizing the weight of one thing. She wasn't alone. The Sigbin loomed over her, its grotesque form emerging from shadows, scales glistening like shards of broken glass under the scattered beams of moonlight. It stared at her with those haunting coal-like eyes, reflecting both hunger and agony. What was it attempting to show? Was she just prey in its twisted game, or was there something more? The ground trembled beneath her. The damning whispers grew louder with each thump of her heart. "Find us," they urged, merging with her rising panic, twisting her sanity, shattering whatever confidence she had left. "Find us," Mommy Abby's voice sung sweetly, drumming in her ears, an eerie lullaby drowned in a sea of doom. Where are you?" Claire yelled into the void, her voice shaking with desperation as she backed away from the hulking figure, terror rising within her. But clarity struck suddenly, a moment breaking through the fog. The creature was not just a monster. There was a sorrow beneath its savagery, a story hidden deep in its marrow, a tale of loss and despair that mirrored her own. What if it, too, had suffered? What if it understood her pain? In that moment of revelation, Claire hesitated. The Sigbin wasn't lunging, it merely watched. The air grew heavy, thick with unsaid words and bitter memories. She could feel the weight of its complex anguish, the reflection of her own. "Tell me," she shouted, breathless, holding her hands up as if to shield herself from the truth. "What do you want from me?" The growl morphed into a shriek, a nightmarish explosion that swirled around her, vibrating through her very core. Shadows twisted violently, and the ground quaked beneath her feet. The air grew thick and warm, stifling her breath. Then silence. Claire held her breath, the weight of lingering dark now palpable. She could see the faint outlines of her children, flickering like distant stars. "Find us before it's too late," the plea echoed, urgent and frantic. And then, the Sigbin lunged forward, unleashing a deafening roar that shook the very pit around her, and Claire realized with dawning horror. It wasn't just her children she needed to save. She had to confront whatever darkness lay twisted within her own heart, or risk losing not only them, but herself to a terrifying fate she dared not imagine. The shadows began to close in, and Claire could feel the boundaries of her reality shifting once more. As she stared into the beast's burning gaze, she had to choose: would she fight, or succumb to the darkness that loomed so closely? At that moment, she knew fear was nothing but an anchor, holding her back from the truth. But would she have the courage to uncover it, or would the weight of her past drag her under? The Sigbin drew closer, its breath hot against her face, and in the depths of the encroaching black, the voice of her children called out once more, softer now, "Help us, Mommy, before it's too late." Claire's heart thundered, pounding in time with the beast's growl. She felt the scorching breath of the Sigbin wash over her, thick with the stench of decay and despair. The moment stretched, a taut wire of fear and anticipation, and she could practically taste the acrid bitterness of her terror. "Find us, please." The wailing echoes clawed at the walls of her mind, puppets on strings of desperation. They drove her to inch closer to the creature, as if it was the only path leading her back to her children. It was a gamble, a mad dance with darkness. "Stay back," she choked, raising a trembling hand as the Sigbin reeled. Its form shifted under the shadows, an amalgamation of horror, reminiscent of tales long forgotten. Hurt and hunger mingled in its eyes, holding a mirror to her own reflected anguish. That was the crux: the creature bore wounds as raw as her own. With every step she took, the pulse of the ground quickened, resonating with the rhythm of her heartbeat. The crushing weight of silence enveloped them like a thick fog. She felt as though they were caught in a terrible ballet, locked into a waltz of horror and yearning. "Why are you here?" Claire yelled, a desperate plea mingling with fury as she fought the swell of panic welling inside. "What do you want?" The whisper of her children wound through her words, a haunting refrain that renewed her determination. A raspy hiss echoed from the Sigbin, like 100 voices trapped beneath layers of earth. "They are not safe. You must uncover the truth." The creature shifted closer, its scales reflecting the dim light, casting ghostly patterns against the graveyard of shadows around them. "What truth?" Claire's voice quivered, panic rising as she searched the abyss of its eyes. The warmth of its breath was a paradox, chilling and scorching all at once. "Beneath the sorrow lies a story. Your past haunts you, just as mine does, with its words, The darkness deepened, and Claire found herself recalling whispers of her childhood days spent in her grandmother's house. The flicker of candlelight casting strange shadows that danced across ancient walls. It was a time steeped in tales of the Sigbin, monsters lurking in the night, and the terrible fates that befell those who strayed too far from safety. As the realization struck, Claire's pulse raced. Her fear was now tinged with guilt. Was the monster representing her own failures as a mother? Had she neglected the past, blind to the warnings, too wrapped in her own grief? The answers loomed like dark clouds ready to break. "Mommy, help us," echoed again, now twisted with an urgency that lanced through her heart. The Sigbin stepped forward, its shape morphing slightly, as if revealing fragments of lost memories. Claire saw flickers of faces, other children, other pleas lost amidst the darkness. Could this creature be a vessel of their stories? "No, I can't lose them," she cried, taking a step back. The air felt electric, charged with the weight of dread. The whispers turned into a storm, swirling around her, demanding answers. "Look within. Embrace what you've buried." The Sigbin gestured with a claw, shadows shifting, revealing flickers of light, tales yet untold. Claire's breath hitched. A choice lay ahead, a chance to confront her deepest fears and reach her children, or remain trapped in an endless cycle of pain. But then she noticed something chilling within the motion of the creature's claws. Beneath the shifting shadows, she spotted her own reflection, and for an instant, she was not just gazing at the Sigbin. She realized it wasn't he merely a monster. It was her. The darkness coiled tighter, breath becoming ragged as her fears took a tangible form. Claire's vision sharpened, the whispered cries of Abby and Ethan now distant echoes. "Mommy, please," could she unravel the truth of the creature and save her children? Or would they someday be a part of this sinister legacy, bound to darkness as she had been? As the shadows curled around her, she prepared to confront what she had long tried to suppress, knowing that the truth would not only come with a price, but possibly expose a horror far greater than the Sigbin itself. What other secrets would be uncovered in that abyss before the night was through? Claire's breath came in panicked gasps, her lungs struggling to rise and fall amidst the paralyzing weight of despair. The Sigbin loomed larger, morphing in the darkness. The familiar faces twisted in its shadows, each one a reminder of lost innocence, lost joy, an echo of her children's pleas gnawing at her sanity. "Turn back," she whispered to herself, feeling drawn into a chasm of past mistakes and regrets. What had she done? The monster was a constant reminder. "Embrace me," the Sigbin urged, its voice piercing like a shard of glass wedged deep within her. "Let me show you. Let me reveal the marrow of your fears." As unbidden memories surfaced, Claire felt a surge of bitterness. Her childhood home, a claustrophobic space filled with whispers in the dark, hidden doors, and a strange cupboard she'd been warned never to approach. Each tale told by her grandmother resonated like thunder in her mind. Never open that door, Claire. Not even in your wildest nightmares. But what if she had years ago? What if she had gone against the grain of caution and ventured into the unknown? Could the past hold the key to saving her children? The Sigbin's claw gestured, a ghastly invitation wrapped in shadows. What did you hide? What did you choose to forget? A deep chill coiled around her heart. Locked away was the truth of a family legacy spun in darkness, secrets layered like the thick fog that now suffocated her. She stumbled back, feeling her body quake against the pulsating energy that thrummed in the silence. Whispers clawed up from the depth of her psyche, memories unfurling. The day she had fled her hometown in harrowing fear, away from old wives' tales, away from her grandmother's madness. At what cost? The fabric of safety stretched thin, unraveling with each flicker of the Sigbin's crimson eyes. Suddenly, a vision struck her, jagged and clear. Images of her children, their faces lined with smudges of dirt and tears, ensnared within a darkened room. She could almost see them now, desperately reaching for her, their soft voices a melody lost in decay. "Mommy!" Abby's call burst forth, raw and plaintive. Her heart lurched. If the Sigbin held her past, did it also possess the key to her children's salvation? "Tell me," Claire cried, the anguish spilling over. "What must I face?" Beneath the creature's haggard form, shadows danced with ferocity. "Your fear is the shackles that bind them. Overcome it. and they shall be free. As darkness tightened its grip, Claire felt it squeeze her throat, choking her with the weight of what lay ahead. What horrors had she buried? The Sigbin inched closer, the scent of decay mingling with an intoxicating hint of nostalgia. With each step, shadows swirled, drawing Claire and showing her flashes of laughter, warmth, and then chaos erupting from a night of abominable recklessness. Without warning, a tall archway materialized, piercing the mist like a beacon. Claire's resolve wavered. Could it lead to her children, or would it drive deeper into despair? Cross over, the Sigbin urged, its voice tangling with her heartbeat, a hypnotic lullaby that begged to be obeyed. The truth awaits you. Without another thought, Claire took a step. The air crackled, alive with potential as white-hot fear coursed through her veins. But as she crossed the threshold, the world warped around her, grotesque forms emerging from the shadows. "Mommy!" The voices blended into a sinister chant, echoing from a void that felt too familiar. What lay on the other side? Salvation or damnation? Claire's heart raced as she pressed forward, knowing that facing the truth could unravel everything she thought she had left. But as she crossed into the darkness, the haunting refrain began to change. "Find us, or we may never escape." The darkness loomed ahead, brimming with untold horrors and blood-chilling revelations. Would she uncover the sinister truth that entwined her fate with the Sigbin, or would she lose everything forever? Claire stepped into a realm that felt like a scream trapped in silence. The air thickened, pressing down on her, wrapping around her like barbed wire. The shadows roiled, forming grotesque shapes, each face, a replica of torment, whispered secrets, hatred, and fear. "Find us." The voices echoed, shattering her consciousness as they entwined with her thoughts. "Where are you?" Claire called out, her voice a mere wisp of wind in the chaos. The Sigbin lingered, a smirk plastered across its twisted visage. "Beyond the veil of memory. You know the path, Claire," it taunted, its eyes glowing like smoldering coals. Panic surged, a stomach-churning dread settled in the pit of her stomach. With a tremble in her hands, Claire reached deeper into her mind. Memories she thought long forgotten surged forward, her family's tales of the Sigbin, the shadows in her childhood home, and the door that had been forbidden. The door. Her breath quickened. She had been warned. Did it speak of this? Did it hide darkness beyond comprehension? Suddenly, a pulse of cold swept through her, and memories splintered into places unfamiliar, yet achingly recognizable. Her grandmother's house. Claire felt a pull, as if that cursed place guided her. She saw its shadowy outline, looming against the recesses of her memory, the stench of decay weaving closer. "Step into the past, and you'll find the truth," the Sigbin urged, darkness curling around it like a breath held too long. "No, I can't," she stalled, yet the pressure from behind pushed her forward. She had to know. For her children. Trembling, she pressed on, moving through the suffocating fog, finally stumbling against a cold, splintered door. It looked familiar, tastefully adorned like a frame for a horror, yet unspoken. Each crack seemed to breathe. The whispers grew louder, clamoring, a cacophony of voices threading together, pulling her in, promising refuge, threatening doom. "Open it," the Sigbin hissed, its breath reeking of moss and despair. Gritting her teeth, Claire placed her shaking hand on the handle, willing strength into her fingers. What waited inside? Could it really hold answers? In a thunderclap of courage, she twisted the knob. The door creaked open, revealing darkness thicker than night. She stepped inside, heart thundering, the shadows leaping around her like frenzied animals. The air continued to thicken as memories spiraled past her. Eerie glimpses of her grandmother muttering prayers over her, snippets of unsettling laughter echoing through the halls. "Face your truths." The Sigbin spat, clawed hands almost touching Claire's shoulders. Suddenly, she was hit with a vision herself, a child, trembling with fear, opening that very door she now faced. Inside, a dim light flickered, revealing a monstrous being coiled within the shadows. Its eyes were her mother's, its voice a mockery of love. "You are just like me," Claire the memory hissed, merging into the Sigbin's taunting tones. "No, I'm not," she cried, clutching her head. "I wouldn't become that." But as if to contradict her defiance, the world warped and twisted, shapes writhing. the Sigbin's laughter embedding in her bones. It sent tendrils of darkness pinching at her sanity, taunting her with fear and regret. Then, with finality, a chilling whisper broke through. They linger trapped by your own shadow. What will you sacrifice to save them? Claire recoiled, suffocated by the weight of that question. Sacrifice? What more was left to give? Each choice wrapped around her, tearing at her insides. Suddenly, a distant cry echoed in the fog, enveloping her senses. "Mommy, help me!" It was Abby. With a desperate scream, Claire lunged deeper into the dark maze of memory, knowing time was running out. Shadows clouded her vision, weaving through pain and hope, stretching closer. Give in to the darkness, or lose them with every heartbeat. The Sigbin hovered closer, ready to strip away her final defenses. Would she submit to its chilling embrace? Or would she emerge from the depths of fear, starkly transformed? As light flickered in the corner of her vision, she gripped the edge of despair. Face what you fear most, and with a shattering resolve, she stepped further into the abyss, leaving behind the familiar light. What awaited her? A final confrontation or an endless descent into madness? The air shifted violently as Claire descended into darkness, an oppressive weight that clung to her skin. The shadows writhed and twisted, whispering her name, echoing it with taunts and memories she'd rather forget. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a desperate bird seeking escape. "Mommy, help me!" Abby's voice, so fragile, shattered the void. Every ounce of Claire's instinct screamed to follow the sound, but the Sigbin's presence loomed like a storm cloud, shrouding her in dread. "Do you hear them?" It crooned, voice thick with malice. "They cry for you. Each note drips with your neglect. Will you abandon them?" Claire forced herself to breathe, fighting the churn of guilt melding with fear. "I'll find them," she promised, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. "I'll save Abby." The Sigbin cackled, its grotesque features contorting with glee. "Oh, but the past holds its secrets fast. You must choose. Him or them." Its long fingers curled tightly, as if to grind her into submission. To know your darkness is to accept it. Determined, Claire pressed forward into the black, the weight of ominous history pressing against her. She felt the edges of her sanity fray as distorted memories began crashing against her. Sweat dampened her brow, her pulse racing in counterpoint to the sickly rhythm of breathless whispers. Suddenly, light flickered ahead, a small, defiant flame cutting through the oppressive shroud. It beckoned her, filling her heart with urgency, with hope. As she staggered closer, the warmth morphed into a hideous glow, revealing shadows writhing in a grotesque dance. The room unfolded around her, a twisted version of her grandmother's home. Walls bore the scars of time, peeling paint revealing dreadful images that writhed like the Sigbin. Claire's pulse throbbed in her ears as she recognized the worn rocking chair in the corner, swaying steadily. In it sat a figure, the silhouette of her grandmother, elongated and shifting. The dim light cast ethereal shadows across its face, a mask of loss and anger. Claire could barely breathe. "Claire, you're here." The voice drifted on, a breath caught between worlds. "I waited, don't you see? The Sigbin is not the monster. It's an echo of your choices. The weak and the lost. That's who you are." "No." Claire's voice cracked, desperation clawing at her. "I'm not like you. I want to give in." "Denial is a bittersweet prison," the figure whispered, her eyes transforming into black pits of despair. "You brought the darkness, dear. You just refused to see." With every word, an icy chill crept deeper, wrapping around Claire's heart. Those eyes drew her in, reminiscences of childhood, laughter mingling with that ghastly weight of regret. Each memory was a thread, connecting her to the Sigbin, a woven tapestry of despair that enveloped her tighter. Then it hit her, a realization fused with terror. "The door," she gasped, pieces clicking into place. The door wasn't a barrier. It was a warning. The shadows pulsed, feeding off her revelation. The Sigbin's glee echoed with gleeful malice. "Yes, dear Claire, what will you offer to see the truth? Would you sacrifice the girl to understand the monster?" "Abby." Claire's heart lurched, the fear tightening like a vice. She had to save her or risk losing everything. But what would it cost? Without thought, she charged toward the murky depths beyond. "I want to pay your price. I want to." The The shadows coiled, vicious and hungry, latching onto her limbs, pulling her back, desperation clawing at her throat. A wail erupted, echoing through the dark, the Sigbin's mocking laughter merging with the distorted cries of her child. Embrace your darkness, Claire, or forever lose her. Decide quickly. Time slips away, and when it's gone, so are they. The choice loomed ahead, one fraught with paralyzing terror. Would she save Abby at the expense of her soul? Or was the truth of her family's legacy worth the ultimate sacrifice? And in that moment of endless night, the chilling question lingered, waiting for her answer, for the shadows to claim their due. What remained of her heart whispered a dangerous thought. What if the monster is what she truly desires? Tension clawed at Claire as she was drawn deeper into the horrifying labyrinth woven from her own past, dancing on the edge of sanity with every heartbeat. Claire's heart thundered, each beat echoing her resolve as she fought against the choking shadow wrapping around her. If there was a truth she needed to confront, she would face it. Alone or not, Abby was worth the risk. Stop, she screamed, voice cracking through the darkness. I won't let you take her. The Sigbin's laughter vibrated around her, cruel and mocking, urging her to submit. But Claire surged forward, hands outstretched, desperate to grasp the hope that flickered before her like a candle's flame in a storm. The rocking chair creaked, moving on its own, as if beckoning her to sit, to surrender. But she was not her grandmother. She would not let the shadows claim her. Tell me what I need to know, she gasped, fighting to separate her from the memories that clung like cobwebs. What do you want from me? Your memories. The Sigbin hissed, its voice slithering through her mind. Embrace them, and you'll find her. As if responding to its command, images flooded her. Abby's laughter, interspersed with the sound of shattering glass. The moments of neglect and the haze of her drinking, her world spiraling as the girl cried for her, feeling abandoned in darkness. Each memory cracked like ice beneath her feet, threatening to swallow her whole. Her breath quickened. She felt the shadows stirring between her heartbeats, feeding off her pain. No, I can't lose my daughter. Which daughter? The Sigbin's eyes glinted in the dim light, drawing closer. The one you cherish or the one you've forsaken? The room shifted, swaying as figures coalesced around her, ghostly apparitions of her mother, her grandmother, and now, a young Abby with sad, searching eyes. They reached for her, their faces twisting with sorrow, each one a mirror reflecting her own guilt. They whispered fragmented truths, words filled with accusations. You let me drown echoed as her mother stood dripping in darkness, her hands grasping futilely, reaching. Your neglect nurtured the monster. The glow of her grandmother's silhouette unveiled, layering truths shrouded in dread. Accept it, Claire. Only then will you find her. She staggered back, horror seeping into her bones. No. This isn't real. Too late, the Sigbin breathed deeply, savoring her agony. With each step, you're locked deeper in this nightmare. The shadows surged, threatening to overtake her. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, overwhelmed but shaking with fear and that quiet whisper inside. Maybe to save Abby, I have to confront my darkest truths. Open your eyes, the Sigbin urged, temptation lurking in the syllables. The truth will set you free or consume you whole. With a resolve stronger than the suffocating black, she opened her eyes, ready to embrace whatever hid in the depths of her soul. As twisted images spun around her, one truth pierced through the chaotic symphony, the realization that every choice she made led to this moment, every haunted night. In that moment of clarity slammed against her like a freight train. She felt Abby's presence flickering in the dark, like a light begging her to choose. I'm coming for you, she screamed, voice steady, gripping the remnants of her strength. Yet the shadows lunged, pulling her back violently, wrapping wicked fingers around her throat, choking the air from her lungs. She gasped for breath, throat tightening, the Sigbin's laughter bubbling over her despair. Choose wisely, your journey is far from over, Claire. Darkness thickened like a fog around her, wrenching her from the light. Just as her vision began to fade, she glimpsed a doorway, flickering in and out of existence. Abby's cries echoed in her ears, but they morphed into a sinister chant. Mommy, save me, the shadows hissed anew. What will it be? Face your truth, or watch her disappear. Clenching her fists, Claire felt the weight of her past pressing in loss, regret, shadows darker than any monster. She teetered on the precipice of despair, stomach churning with the consequences of both choices. She was trapped, but if she couldn't save Abby, would she ever forgive herself? As the shadows twisted in the wail of the Sigbin crescendoed, Claire screamed, and oh more. And in that scream came the strange, electric hum of a rising storm, the very air around her vibrating as she sensed a shift. Even as shadowy claws reached for her, she felt a surge of hope breaking through. Would she be able to shatter the darkness? But as the ground beneath her feet trembled, another chilling thought emerged amidst the chaos. What if by confronting her past, she opened a door neither of them could escape from? With a heart full of terror, she charged toward the flickering doorway, unsure of what lay beyond, but desperately willing to find out. The dread followed, threatening to root her back in place, but the question hung heavy. Could she truly change the course of her fate? The dark void pulsed around Claire, relentless and overwhelming. Each heartbeat echoed like a war drum, fierce and insistent. Could she really confront the darkness and emerge whole? She didn't have time to doubt. Abby's voice, fragile, filled with terror, called to her, pulling her from the brink. Somewhere, deep in that terrible abyss, her little girl was waiting, and Claire would do anything to save her. With one final push, she surged through the flickering doorway. It felt like breaking through the surface of a turbulent sea, gasping for air. Light blinded her momentarily, but she fought against the haze. Stumbling forward, she suddenly found herself back in her childhood home, yet everything felt skewed, haunted. Shadows danced across the walls, twisted and grotesque, whispers weaving in and out like a disturbing melody. "You've returned," the Sigbin's voice echoed through the air, menacing and smooth. "Where are my children?" Claire demanded, fear surging like a tidal wave. "What do you want from me?" "Let the shadows guide you," it hissed, gliding closer, body undulating like smoke. "Embrace what you've denied or see your family swallowed whole." The Sigbin leaned closer, eyes smoldering. "Only you can change their fates." The urgency clawed at her gut, igniting a fire of terror and strength. "I don't care what I have to face. Just tell me." A pulse resonated through the room, an echo of her heart racing in sync. The shadows thickened, molding into shapes that reflected her life, the moments she buried beneath layers of grief. Those moments sliced through her like glass, memories of neglect, sorrow, and the pain of losing her own way. She thought of Abby and Ethan, how lost they were without her. "Face your failures, Claire. They are your power," the Sigbin hissed, its voice a chilling echo of her own fears. "No, I won't let you manipulate me." She felt the air swell with resistance, the warmth of her own determination igniting life into her voice. She craved connection and redemption. She would mend the fractures she had allowed to widen. Without hesitating, she reached into the swirling darkness, determined to understand the truth. Images cascaded before her, flickering memories of laughter, love, and the moments she let slip through her fingers. She saw Abby's joy, the warm hugs, the late-night stories, and the way her daughter looked when she felt safe. But then darker moments unfurled, the rage, the bottle she leaned on, the weight of her despair that had choked her children's laughter from the air. Claire's throat tightened, but she pressed forward. "I see you now. I see the truth. Can you bear it?" The Sigbin whispered, a smirk creeping across its grotesque face. Claire's breath trembled. Tears pooled in her eyes as the weight of her past crashed over her like a wave. "Yes, I have to bear it. I have to fight for my kids." The Sigbin laughed, but the sound lost its menace, fading into silence as the shadows shifted. "Then embrace them, Claire. Let the darkness flow through you. Recall the pain, because only then can you save them." And just like that, clarity washed over her. Memories came rushing back, not just the embarrassment or anger, but the lessons they carried. Visions of her grandmother's stories, the strength of her family. They were part of her, a legacy not to be feared, but embraced. In that moment, she transformed the fear. Claire drew strength from the shadows, weaving the lessons learned into something powerful, a new legacy for her children. Ordering the tempest inside her, she cried out, voice steady and resolute, "I won't let darkness decide our future." The Sigbin recoiled, confusion twisting its features. You cannot possess both. I can. I will, Claire shouted, the resolve burning fierce in her chest. The room began shifting again, humming with a strange energy. Bursting forth from her heart, a surge of light erupted, pushing back against the shadows. Every loss, every moment of despair became threads of gold binding hope together fiercely. The Sigbin hissed and writhed, threatened by the warmth. No, you don't understand. On the contrary, Claire said, eyes alight with fierce determination. You don't understand. Love outmatches fear. With those words, the shadows shrieked, and Claire felt the world shift beneath her feet. Colors exploded around her as pieces of her past, essential yet painful, finally settled into place. She reached out, hands steady, toward the fading figures her children, walking through a new archway forming from radiant light. "Mommy!" Abby cried, rushing toward her with gleeful laughter. Ethan followed, eyes wide with hope. Their warmth enveloped Claire, replacing the icy grasp of the shadows that had held her hostage for far too long. In that embrace, Claire knew the truth that love was the most powerful force against the darkness. It pulled down walls, ripped apart despair, and stitched fractured hearts together. Together, they were fierce, and together, they'd always been stronger than any living nightmare. With the Sigbin diminished, defeated by the light Claire had embraced, shadows relinquished their hold. As sunlight bathed the room, she whispered a silent vow to her children. Never again. In the days that followed, Oak Hollow felt different. The whispers shifted, turning to stories of bravery and resilience. Claire stood on the porch, watching her children play, hearts unburdened, laughter strong. Strength surged through her, a fierce flame ignited by her fierce love, reflecting in Abby S. and Ethan S. bright smiles. This was their new beginning, a journey that embraced the shadow but never let it define them. And in the warm glow of the sunset, she closed her eyes, feeling the gentle pulse of hope coursing through her, knowing she would forever protect their light. Now, dear friends, this is it. If you've loved this journey and want to dive into more thrilling tales, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next adventure. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help our community grow. Let us fill the comments with your reactions and wild theories about what happens next. Don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who would love this conclusion together. We can grow this family. Your support means everything. Let us keep the stories coming.